This is an interview with Ann Wilson to talk about some of her memories of Hope United Methodist Church. And Ann, maybe you can tell us the first time you heard of the Christian gathering that we now know as Hope United Methodist Church.
It was probably in about 74. We had joined the United Methodist Church, or University Methodist Church. And we heard that there was a church meeting in the Bellevue School. So we changed over to that church.
Did you live in that neighborhood?
Yes, we lived in what they call Sundance, which is about a mile from the church where it is now.
Yes. And at that time, the church meeting was in the school.
Yeah, right, in the Bellevue, in the elementary part of that, because there's elementary and middle and high school.
Right.
And it was in the elementary part.
And they met in the gymnasium, is
Yes.
that right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, was Bob Cole already the pastor?
Yes, he was
Okay.
the minister.
And who told you about this church?
That I don't recall.
But it was closer to your home where you and Jack
Oh, yeah, I
lived?
said it was only a mile.
Yeah.
We could walk.
Yeah. Tell us what you remember about a meeting in that Bellevue school.
This has nothing to do with church, but I remember it was Barb Hurl had her children, and Jack would always think that her little baby misbehaved. And Barb has always remembered that Jack would, tease her little baby. He loved babies.
Well, it strikes me as a pretty informal gathering. Is that what you remember?
Well, it was church. It was, we had the regular church service. The chairs were in a kind of a semicircle.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty much just music and the sermon. And
Did they have a piano?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But not a choir. They just,
No,
everybody sang.
no.
Yeah.
Although Barb, what was her last name? Started a choir.
Barb Lair.
Yes.
Yes.
But I don't think she started it until we met where we are now in Schultz Hall.
Yeah. And what about your family? What did you have children at that time?
I had my two youngest with me. I left my oldest three in California.
And they attended at the
youngest.
Bellevue School or
Yeah. Mhm.
Bellevue Church when you
And
met
one
them?
went to the high school and one was in Bellevue.
Yeah. Tell me what you remember about Bob Cole as a pastor.
I remember he was very, not sophisticated, unsophisticated.
Okay.
And he was a nice guy.
Well, he was pretty young, wasn't he?
Yes, and he had the office where he did all the work in that bank building that is still on Yosemite.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah,
And
because we would go there to do certain things that had to be done for the church.
yeah. Well, tell us about your involvement with the early part of that church. Did you help positions or work with different programs?
We got a women's group started in regular United Methodist Women, and I was the first treasurer and secretary. And it started small, but it grew. By the time we moved over to the other building, it was at least 40 women that met all the time.
Wow. Yeah.
And now we have 8.
It grew and expanded.
Yes,
Now
and
it's
it
contracted some.
disappeared, and now we're trying to get it started
Yeah,
again.
that's good. And did Jack hold some positions at the church?
Not when we were in the gymnasium,
Mm-hmm.
but afterwards, I think he held all kinds of positions.
Yep. Well, I think they received a charter in September 28th of 1975.
Mhm.
Were you still a member at the University
No,
Park
no.
Church?
Well, at that time, you weren't supposed to join a new church until your letter was transferred.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And so I was there when they chartered it in the service, but I didn't go up to be a charter member because I couldn't get Bob Cole to get my letter of transfer.
Well, I thank you for clarifying that because I had thought that you were a charter member of this church.
I
But
was,
when I
yeah,
looked at the names, your name wasn't on it.
No.
Yours and Jack's
That's
name
fine.
weren't there.
that's why.
You're waiting for your membership to be
Yeah,
transferred.
to be transferred.
Okay. But you have been there since before it was
Oh,
chartered.
yeah.
And a big part of that since then.
Because I remember Kelly kept saying, Mom, you go up, Mom. And I said, I can't, honey, I can't do that.
I think we should honorarily recognize you as a charter member of the church.
Well,
Well, tell me about, you said there were 40 women in the United Methodist Women in the early days. How many people would attend church when you were meeting at the school?
yeah, by numbers, I don't know. It seemed like it was probably as many as we have now in the early service.
Yeah. So 40 or 50
Yeah,
people would show up, maybe a little bit more. Do you remember how they selected the name Hope for this new church?
No, we voted on it.
Oh, you did?
Yes. They had several names and it was voted, and that was the one that everybody wanted.
Do you remember some of the other names that were suggested?
No, I don't.
Did you like Hope as the name?
Yes.
Did you vote for it?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
That was a good name.
Well, in February of 1979, the new building at the corner of Bellevue and Dayton opened, which is now the Schultz Fellowship Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you remember having worship services there?
Oh, yes. Yes.
What was that like?
Well, it was just a transfer from the gymnasium at Bellevue over to there. The
Yeah.
Same thing. Church, that's, folding chairs and just about the same. And Bob Cole was there then.
Yeah.
But I don't remember when he left.
Right toward the end of that year, because the middle or so of 79, I think, Alton Brown came.
Yeah, Al Brown.
And he was the pastor when I first came, but they were still meeting in that Schultz Fellowship Hall, and would put the chairs out, and they had kind of little risers for the choir and
Yes, they did.
the pastor. But other than that, it looks like it does
Yeah, right.
today. Yeah. We looked at that picture of Jack and John Burgoyne planting trees and shrubs. Tell us what that corner looked like when they first built that building.
Well, it was bare, and the building wasn't near as large as it is now. It's hard to remember where they cut that off because they added all that back part to it.
Yes. All of that came later in the 80s and some even into the 90s.
Right.
We have a picture in the records that show a barn over there where the Jewish congregation is.
Yes, and
Yes.
then that was built into, it didn't start out to be a Jewish synagogue. It was another church.
Mhm.
And then the Jewish did buy it. And they've
And-
added on to it and changed it,
Yep.
changed the outside appearance.
Well, the property just, I guess, to the west and south a little bit of the current church has some horses and a barn there now, but those early pictures show it pretty much farmland or countryside.
And a very small farmhouse.
Yes. Tell me what you remember about Al Brown as the pastor.
I don't remember a lot about Al Brown. He was a good pastor.
Do you remember Victor Schultz?
Oh, very much so.
Tell me what you remember about him.
Oh, Vic was just the greatest guy in the world, and his wife also, the two of them. And he kept that church going. He really did. I think there was a time when maybe Al Brown left and Victor took over the whole thing, even though he was a retired.
When I first came there, he was the minister of membership or new members or whatever, and he came to see me after I had been to the church as a visitor and was instrumental in getting me to join that church. He was a very persuasive man,
Oh, yeah.
I thought.
And he and his wife both worked real hard at that church.
What, you think he had retired before he came back to work at Hope
Yes.
and then came back to
Yeah.
be a service there?
And then he had to take over as a full-time minister for a while.
Yep. Do you remember his personality? What kind of personality he had?
Very cheerful, upgoing, and nobody had any faults. I mean, to Victor, everybody was fine, was good.
Yeah,
Everybody was his friend.
good.
Yeah,
And you mentioned his wife. Was she active in the women's
very
group?
active,
Yeah.
very active.
What do you remember about her?
Well, she was just always there for the women. She came to everything, to all our meetings. And you know, it helps the other women when the pastor's wife is active.
Yes. Sure does.
Hmm.
Well, tell me about some of your participation in the activities over the years. What all have you done at Hope Church?
Well, I was president of the women's group for 2 years, and I have participated in almost anything that the women have done, and I still do
Yes.
participate in the things that we are doing, like this sew project and the stocking project
Yes.
for the itinerant men, whatever I'm asked. I never taught Sunday school.
Oh, you didn't?
No,
No.
that's something I didn't do.
But you fixed meals and you helped sewing and
yes.
you gathered supplies and
Yes,
helped all sorts of things.
yeah. Our first kitchen was in the secretary's office, and we didn't have anything. So when Shirley Hull redid their kitchen, she donated her leftover stove and refrigerator for us, and that was put in the secretary's office, and that was our kitchen. And we did meals for 100 people all the time in that little kitchen. Then, of course, the next kitchen was where the elevator is now.
That's right.
Mhm.
That's the only one I remember is
Yeah.
that little bitty one that where the elevator is.
And that's where we did lots and lots of cooking from there. I remember one time when Margaret Hankins she was superintendent of the Methodist Church.
Right.
And I got a call from the secretary about 4 o'clock Friday afternoon, and she said, "Oh, did you know, I forgot to tell you, but Margaret's group is coming here for lunch tomorrow."
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. I said, "Well, you better get on the phone and order some platters of food from King Super, and I'll go down and pick it up tomorrow, and I'll take care of it." So Jack pitched in, and the two of us fed the women,
All right.
Margaret's group. That's the kind of thing you did.
Well, I remember too when they were going to remodel and build on the new sanctuary, there was a big discussion about the kitchen and that we needed a bigger kitchen. Some people thought we did and some people thought we didn't. I assume you supported having a bigger
Yes.
kitchen.
Yes. And the minister then, I've forgotten who he was. He didn't think we needed one because he said, people have everything catered. Well, Methodists don't have things catered.
I agree.
Methodists cook.
Well, in 1984, they built the new big sanctuary that we're currently using. Do you remember when that sanctuary opened?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And worship services there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us what you remember about opening and moving into that building.
Well, it was a pleasure. And it really was, it was different. We had never had anything that was really a sanctuary. So it was quite nice to have a choir loft and the back where the ministry is,
Yes. And plenty of room.
plenty of room.
Yeah.
And of course, the stained glass windows came later. They were built, one by one as the money was collected for those
Right.
beautiful windows we have.
Yes. Well, after Al Brown was the pastor, I believe Richard Vickery was assigned to Hope Church for a while. Do you remember Pastor Vickery?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What do you remember about him?
I probably shouldn't mention better edit this out. I did not like the way he gave communion. It was like the Catholic Church.
I see.
He would dip the bread into the thing,
Yes,
and we're not used to having communion like that.
yes,
To me, it's just not a sanitary way to take communion.
yes.
You're going to edit this out.
Well, I remember him as being a little formal.
He was.
For,
He was typical New York.
Yeah. The congregation, in my opinion, was more family oriented and easygoing and joked around a lot, but he was pretty stiff and formal about nearly everything.
It didn't set good.
Yeah. Well, do you remember Sam Day, who came to be president?
Yes.
Yep. What do you remember about Sam Day?
Sam Day was the 4 titled sermons he always had. And he just, he was probably the only minister that ever got out and worked on work day. You know, really got out and dug and did the whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah. And there again, his wife was very active.
You're right. I think when the couple are both active in the church, it makes a big difference. Yeah, makes a big difference. Well, after Sam Day was a pastor, Margaret Rush Hankins came, and she had been the district superintendent before.
Right.
Then she gets appointed to Hope Church. What do you remember about Margaret?
Oh, Margaret, she baptized my twins.
Oh, she did?
Yes. No, I really liked Margaret.
And
It was different having a woman pastor.
Yes.
But I thought she was very good.
Well, we had some associate pastors or education ministers or something that were women, but we never had a senior pastor until Margaret. Yeah.
I don't think we ever had an associate either, did we?
I'm trying to think about a couple of ladies may have come after that. I'm not sure. But she was obviously the first one appointed as a senior pastor to be at the church.
Yeah, she was the only one that we'd had.
Yep.
And she did a fine job.
Well, you've been a faithful member at Hope Church for 42 years now.
Is it that?
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about what the church meant to you and your family?
Well, it's been a lot to me because it's been there when I've needed someone or something. They've always come through. A big help when we lost our daughter. That was a big blow and just about put Jack under. I don't think he ever was himself again. That was a loss he couldn't tolerate, couldn't take.
Yeah. That's awfully hard when you lose a child.
They're not supposed to go before you.
Well, you've been a big help for others at that time. It's nice to hear that members of the church helped you and when you needed things.
They always have. They've always been there.
And you mentioned earlier that Jack has been gone 17 years now? Yeah.
No, when Jack was in that terrible car accident, the women all jumped in and brought meals every day. And that's what the women do.
Yes. Make things work.
Yeah. And do the cook.
Yep.
They cook.
Well, you've mentioned this jumping in and helping other people and other things. Are there other attributes about Hope Church that you remember or you like?
Well, I like the church. Well, one reason because it's Methodist, and I like the way Methodists are.
Yes.
We're not rigid. We're fairly easygoing, but there's still a deep religious background.
Had you grown up with a Methodist church?
Yes.
Yep, me too. So that's part of my background and history. And I appreciate that about Hope Church. Well, what would you like to see from Hope, say, in the next 42 years? Would you like to see it get into new ministries or do different things?
I wish there was a way that it could grow. You hear about these mega churches that have 1,000 members that come every Sunday. And I just wonder what we're missing in not bringing in more new members? How do these mega churches do it? What are they doing that we're not,
Yes.
or that we should be? I don't know. More advertising, more, I just don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the answer to that is either. Well, we talked a little bit about the early church at the school and moving into the one building that's now the fellowship hall and then expanding into the bigger church. Are there memories of things that have triggered in your mind about Hope and your relationship with it?
I've got a lot of memories. It was hard to watch our women's group die. At one time we had, I said, 30 to 40 in the main
Yes.
group, and we had 5 circles.
Wow.
We don't have any circles anymore. Of course, you're not a woman. You don't understand all that women are supposed to have all these
Yes. Well, my grandmother and my mother were both in different
circles. And
different circles.
So.
So I understand a little bit about
Yeah.
the organization. You're right.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about your memories of Hope, your experience with Hope Church?
No, I just think it's a great place for me for fellowship. I sometimes think, do I go to church to hear the sermon? Do I go to see my friends?
And maybe it's a little of both.
Yeah, because I would
Uh,
very much miss the people at the church.
yes.
I just had a group of our church in here to play bridge yesterday.
And you told me, I think you're going over to the church tomorrow.
Tomorrow
to do
for
something?
that meeting that Ann Mangelson heads, the prayer group.
Yeah.
We are trying to learn to pray.
It's a good idea. Well, Ann, thank you for your years of service at Hope Church and for sitting down and spending a few minutes with us today to talk about your memories of Hope. We appreciate it.
Oh, you're sure welcome.
Thank you.